So here we are. Toyota has finally released an actual electric car to market, which is kind of strange considering the fact that they say they're bad for the environment. Anyhow, is it good? What are the details? Here's everything we know. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you here today. I've got to say, it's an exciting day. There's so many things happening today. I've got like 100 tabs open on my computer. It's crazy. But one of the most important news stories is the fact that the world's largest car company, not for long in my view, but anyway, the world's largest company right now, have finally released officially their EV to market. Now, for you US buyers, you actually do have a confirmation of when Toyota is apparently going to release the bZ4X in your country. We don't have one here in Australia, unfortunately. In other markets, it's some of them yes, some of them no. The all-electric Toyota bZ4X not only looks to further Toyota's commitment to carbon neutral future, yeah, right, anyway, but it does so in style, the company said after launching the vehicle this morning. It's ready to make a fresh mark on the battery electric vehicle segment. It blends bold, modern styling with tech features in an extremely capable platform. Personally, as you can see in this image here, it's got a two-tone color. I personally think it looks bizarre, but I think in a single color it looked good. Just in this two-tone thing, I'm not a fan of that, but let me know in the description below, what do you think of the two-tone look? So what's the range? Well, the range is 252 miles on front-wheel drive models, and it starts at $42,000 US. It seems like a pretty competitive price. Range, a little bit low, but the price for that amount of range, that's pretty damn impressive. Now, looking at the interior, personally, I think it looks extremely dated, extremely old school, even though it's a brand new vehicle. I find that a bit weird. There's heaps of cars available now on the market, in particular in China, but even in other countries in Europe as well, that have much, much nicer interiors in this sort of price range. I'm not really sure why it's got so many buttons. I don't know, it sort of looks to me a bit like an old Nokia phone from 2005. That's just me though. That's just me. The other thing I noticed is it does look like it's very grey and drab looking on the interior. But in comparison to the exterior, I think the exterior is quite modern looking, quite nice. Now, Toyota actually said the design focuses on a dynamically flowing silhouette. I don't know what that means, but I don't know. Anyway, so there's 4 different trim levels and they all cost under $50,000 US. So it's priced pretty well. 2 of the grades with XLE and Limited and 2 drivetrains. Those include a front wheel and an all-wheel drive. The front-wheel drive base model is $42,000. The base model with a few extra features costs $46,700. The four-wheel drive version base model costs $44,000, and the four-wheel drive version with a few extra features costs $48,000. I've got to say, it's very competitively priced. However, it's important for you US buyers. These are US prices for US market. This gives you an idea in other countries worldwide of what it might cost you in your market. So that's why I've told you these prices. But for you US buyers, Toyota will soon run out of the US tax credit, I think within the next month or two. So it's unlikely you'll be able to use the $7,500 US tax credit on these cars if you're planning to do so. So you can't really factor that into the cost that you're going to pay. What else do we know? Well, front-wheel drive trim levels will produce 201 horsepower, which I think is a bit underpowered, but that's just me. And it will come, the all-wheel drive models will come with 214 horsepower. 0 to 62 miles an hour or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour takes 7.1 seconds for the front-wheel drive models and 6.5 seconds for the all-wheel drive model. In addition, every model will come with a J1772 or CCS1 socket, so home and public charging will be pretty simple. Toyota said there is a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, which allows the bZ4X to charge from low to full in about 9 hours at home with a level 2 charger if you have one of those at home. Personally, I think what's more important than any of these specs, features, looks, design, performance, everything else is the actual number of Toyota plan on manufacturing. Nobody knows what that is. They haven't given really any indication of what that is, but I would say it's not very big, at least for the first year. So is it very good? Well, Inside EVs has an interesting review up on their website, which says that the vehicle is competent but invisible. What does that mean exactly? Well, first of all, the review says that the vehicle has a wheelbase of 112.2 inches. That's exactly the same length as the Highlander 3-row midsize SUV. So that's going to give the car plenty of room inside, with comfortable front seats and enough leg room for a 6-foot rear seat rider to stretch out behind the driver. That's pretty important if you've got like big kids and you want to sit them in the back seat. As you can see, the instrument cluster is mounted on a pod and it sits high on a flat dash and far from the wheel toward the base of the windshield glass. In addition, it has a 12.3-inch infotainment central touchscreen and dedicated button controls for actual features. So you don't need to press the touchscreen for those controls that you can access via buttons. Some of those controls include things like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning functions, which you might not want to touch a touchscreen to get into those controls. Personally, I think people have probably gotten used to that in other vehicles, but that's something that Toyota thinks clearly is important. So the reviewer says the following: on the road, the front-wheel drive model drove pleasantly enough with excellent noise control and few of the electric car whines that some models produce. I think that's really good. With only 201 horsepower or 150 kilowatt in a 4,266 pound vehicle, about 900 pounds more than a RAV4, even the lightest front-wheel drive model is not a speed demon. The all-wheel drive model with 214 horsepower felt a bit faster, though it's also heavier at 4,322 pounds. Now, the reviewer says he was surprised to find that the single-motor bZ4X has some of the least powerful regenerative braking. That's important to consider. He says, I've recently experienced in different EVs, and this had less regenerative power than any other car that I've tested. Now, due to what Toyota execs characterized as supply chain challenges, the single and the dual motor versions of the bZ4X use different battery cells from different manufacturers. The base front-wheel drive model uses a 71.4 kilowatt hour pack with cells from Panasonic, but the all-wheel drive version uses a Chinese-made battery pack of 72.8 kilowatt hours using CATL cells. This explains a difference in their charging rates. The front-wheel drive model charges at rates up to a quoted 150 kilowatt, while the maximum possible rate quoted for the all-wheel drive pack is only 100 kilowatts. So if this is something that matters to you, if fast charging when you're, say, on a road trip matters to you, then obviously the front-wheel drive model would be the better model for you to choose. I think it's kind of weird, isn't it, that the more expensive all-wheel drive model has significantly slower charging. Now, the all-wheel drive version offers an X mode control that lets drivers choose among several modes for difficult conditions like snow, dirt, mud, etc., etc. However, only 2 trim levels are offered, XLE and Limited, with 18-inch wheels as standard and 20-inch alloy wheels on the top trim Limited. All versions, every single version, all 4, have a panoramic fixed glass roof, one area where Toyota has echoed most other EVs on the market, but the XLE offers only black interiors. Options unlimited to a weather package on the XLE and 3 on the Limited, which include a split rear spoiler, a 2-tone paint treatment, don't get that, with contrasting roof, and a 9-speaker JBL audio system. So there's not a whole lot of options to choose from. That's probably a good thing, I think. EVs can be special. Is this one? Well, the reviewer says this: looking at the features that make up a well-designed EV and often make them better than their internal combustion engine counterpart, the Toyota bZ4X comes up short in a few areas. What are they? 4 different areas he mentions. It lacks a front trunk. So maybe the packaging on this car could have been done a bit better, because the front of the bonnet, it's a pretty big bonnet. It's a pretty big front area. So I'm not sure why Toyota needed to use all that space. I would have thought they could have fit a frunk in the front bonnet. Anyway, point 2, a maximum charging rate of up to 150 kilowatt on the front wheel drive version is par the course, but doesn't approach the rates of 350 kilowatt theoretically possible on the newest Hyundai and Kia, and actually a number of different Chinese vehicle brands as well. And obviously it's a fair bit slower than Tesla's 250 kilowatt charging also. But if you want to get the all-wheel drive model version, 100 kilowatt charging, well, that is really probably down the bottom of the list in terms of charging speed for new EVs. Number 3, it doesn't offer the plug and charge software that lets drivers simply plug in and walk away, with all billing handled seamlessly at the back end. And to be frank, to be honest with you, Toyota doesn't do software really all that well. They kind of master something and then they keep that way of doing things for, say, the next 10 years. That's just the way the company works, and people see that as being reliable, which it often is. But it also means they often don't offer cutting-edge features or cutting-edge functions. Point 4, it lacks useful power out capability with no 120-volt outlet to let passengers power electric accessories that draw more power than a USB port provides. And I think that is a pretty significant oversight as well. So the reviewer says, in the end, I was left with the impression that Toyota, always a conservative company, has not reached for the stars in its first volume EV. The bZ4X, though, will likely be well built, reliable, and with luck, perhaps the batteries can be as durable as those in the company's renowned hybrids, which often last up to 300,000 miles. Toyota says its goal for the bZ4X batteries is to retain 90% of original capacity after 10 years, though that is not in the warranty, which protects against complete battery failure for 8 years or 100,000 miles. So it basically has the same warranty that 90% of other manufacturers on the market have. So I think Toyota's claims are pretty bogus, to be honest. They're marketing nonsense, because if you're going to make claims but then not actually stand by those claims, that's sort of ridiculous. That's just like me saying, hey, I'm going to sell you this computer here. It'll last you for 1,000 years, but I'm not going to warranty it. It doesn't make sense in my view. Now, the reviewer says one annoying thing of the car, in his view, was that the bZ4X quotes battery charge only in miles remaining. Virtually every other EV offers a battery state of charge in percentage, somewhere in the cluster or the vehicle status screens, not Toyota. And company executives declined to discuss at what charge percentage the battery would warn drivers of a low battery condition. The algorithm varies, they said. Fair enough. But experienced EV drivers often prefer percentage because it's less likely to induce range anxiety and more like a traditional gas gauge. The reviewer finishes with this, and I think he might be a bit cynical on Toyota, and I think that's fair considering what Toyota have done to damage EVs over the last decade. They've obviously spent millions of dollars working against the EV industry. He says, as for sales in the US, expect Toyota to sell exactly as many of the bZ4X as they're required to meet regulatory requirements and keep the company within corporate average fuel economy limits. Do not, however, expect Toyota ads to point out the advantages of EVs over its lineup of gasoline hybrids anytime soon. It has too much invested in the latter. If Toyota is serious about EVs, and now it has to be, whether it wants to be or not, it will improve its subsequent EVs to keep them competitive. The bZ4X isn't a bad offering, it's just a little underwhelming. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this new EV. I think it's decent, and I think decent is fair comment to make, but the pricing seems good. The key here is production volumes. Now, there's a reason that BYD are building EVs for Toyota. They don't currently have much production capacity to build EVs. So the key question here will be, how many will they make?